A few others who really took it on the chin. And so last year in the legislature, we had the Dawes bill that came through, and it looked at some state share revenues a little bit differently. It didn't get traction. The bill we wrote as well got conversation started, and so we're very pleased that TML and I've asked Alderman Sanders to represent us at TML West Tennessee District 8 and at the state conference level because we need to make sure we have a relationship there. We do, but we need to have a point person there. So I do appreciate that very much. We look forward to getting your reports after your meetings and such. So, you know, this is significant. It's a $100 million fiscal note for the state coffers, and certainly it could help us a little bit offset the loss of Hall if it moves forward. And so we would just encourage you as a board to reach out to your friends and contacts at the state level. And we have, I don't know if you're passing out today, but we can get you the information on the TML bill. We'll get that to you so you can have those conversations. We're also, we're heading as a city to, we'll have other trips, but we're heading on the 6th to General Assembly. And I know we put out a kind of a deadline to get back to us so we can make the accommodations and make the plans. And so we set our meetings when people are going there as well. So any of the board members who want to make that trip to the General Assembly, we encourage and welcome. So if you could make sure you understand this legislation, ask any questions of me or Patrick or John Ferris, our lobbyist, and let's really put the pressure on in Nashville. Vice Mayor?
Do we have anyone out of East Tennessee that's agreed to co-sponsor on that bill?
Don't know yet. It was just filed 2 Thursdays ago, but that's a great question. We'll follow up on that. And we will definitely be prepared for a visit on the 6th. And hopefully some more people will sign on to this. Yes, sir.
Just to follow up on Brock, if I could, that was one of the concerns with Dawes, is that we had support in West Tennessee Middle and lost it on the eastern side. So.
Well, and as you know, about close to 28% of the General Assembly has turned. And that's Senate and House of Representatives. And so we lost some of our friends.
Literally.
I mean, yeah. What's McCormick, who I think we went to high school with, or Forrest did. And, you know, he was a great ally of ours in Chattanooga and routinely met with us and would sponsor bills. And he had a real heart for Germantown where he grew up. And, you know, as well as anything, life is built on relationships. And so we've got to make the relationships on the east side of the state, and strategically, and Mayor Goldsworthy's time and my time, you know, every time we go to the legislature, you know, we don't sit at the same table for our meetings. We try to meet with our delegation, someone new in Middle Tennessee, and someone new in East Tennessee, so that we can begin. That's how we met Ed Jackson, plus his brother lives here, which was nice as well. So to answer your question, we're working on it.
Okay.
Yeah. My question is, this increase, the possible increase, make us whole as far as the $3 million or $3.5 million before we could reduce our...
No, we're close. We actually, if you look at sales tax provider, the local option and the state shared, we get substantially more in the local option. Our 2.75 produces more for us than our portion of the current 4.6 of the 7% that comes back to us. No, it'll help, Rocky. It'll absolutely help. And when you think about the elastic sales tax that we always talk about, and the up and the down periods in the economy, having that per capita amount coming back to us would help in that regard. But in no way does it come close. And I will get a number. We've been waiting for MTAS or TML to put together what is the fiscal note on this for cities across the state. We know how it's going to hit. The state knows how it's going to hit them. But we'll get a breakdown by every city of what does this mean to them approximately. From a budgetary standpoint, we're not going to budget for these dollars at this point, unless something happens and they pass some legislation in April. We won't anticipate this fiscal year.
But it's not going to make us whole, and it won't help us reduce our
No, sir. No. But it'll, you know, any little bit helps. But as I said, when we're preparing the budget, we're not going to count on this. Because we're starting our projections now, our revenue projections. And my understanding, talking to our lobbyist, Mr. Ferris, is the General Assembly probably is going to go a little bit later this year. Of course, you guys see the budget at the end of April. They may still be in session. If it happens, that's great, and we'll budget forward in FY21. The other areas, any other questions about that? The other area of sales tax that we're monitoring, and it is extremely confusing, is what's happening with internet sales tax. I wish I could sit here and tell you and go to our revenue budget, revenue line item and say, this is how much we've received from the state from internet sales. If you've ordered anything from Amazon or other companies like Wayfair or Walmart, we are all paying that 2.75 we're providing in Germantown. I know from personal experience, having boxes delivered to the house, we're paying the sales tax. The state of Tennessee is collecting that sales tax, and they're looking at legislation where they can collect it from other online retailers as well. We're watching that very carefully because when they do start to redistribute all of that, we want to make sure that it's coming back to Germantown on an equitable basis, whether it's situs-based, hasn't been decided yet, i.e. point of sales, or if they're going to send it back to us on a per capita basis.
Yeah, because they're collecting our whole 2.75 and then.
And the 7.
Yeah, and the 7. And we're not, there's no way for them to know when, say, Amazon gives them a check, how much of that was from Germantown.
Right. Right. But the state is collecting it. And Mayor and I had a meeting, talked about that with our peers in Barfield. And they, that was a question they had. So all the other cities are in this county are in the same boat. We met with the mayors and the administrators there, and they're concerned about where is this online sales tax going. We want to make sure that when they do make a decision on how it's going to be redistributed, that cities are aligned and we get our fair share. Collierville, when they had their property tax adjustment, I think it was a year ago, and one of the things my friend James Llewellyn was talking about was what was happening with the mall and how online sales were literally destroying the brick and mortar in Collierville. We haven't had that here. That's not to say it won't happen. But our shopping is a little bit more unique. There's only one Apple store. Things like that. There are Trader Joe's in the area. So we're more of a destination for retail as opposed to some of the big box organizations. But we'll keep tracking the internet sales and keep you all posted on that. Again, we're not going to budget for whatever that is this year because we frankly don't know.
It's Rule 129, if you hear that term, that pertains to the internet sales tax here in the state of Tennessee.
No, that's it. We've got a bill that we're happy about, and we're on the sales tax state shared portion, and we're going to push that. And we're going to watch very closely for the board what happens with internet sales.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
One thing about the situs space, we could think about looking at with our lobbyists, and you might have to strike 2 or 3 times like you did with this bill, because you can get a lot of pushback. But if it's not point of sale, it's point of delivery, we could tap into, if somebody went to Lowe's and bought the washer and dryer and Lowe's delivered it to 38139, 38138. That tax could come here, but if you put it in your truck and drove off with it, Memphis gets it. So there's a few twists you could look at, and you're gonna get a lot of pushback from these other cities. But we have no big box stores, so towns like Germantown and others around the state might support something like that. I don't know if you could garner support enough to try to do it, but that's another angle to come at.
Well, you're spot on, because part of the Rule 129 is trying to develop the criteria for whether it's a point of origin, point of delivery, point of actual purchase. All those different things have not been ironed out, but right now, though, the state is collecting that.
Exactly.
And so we know that money is somewhere, and so we want to make sure that That's correct. Well, we know that part for sure. But eventually, we want to make sure we get our fair share for our community. I mean, it's critical, and it helps out. And sales tax, as we know, has affected communities differently. You know, we've seen very robust sales tax collections here, and the reasons, there are many, many different reasons. You highlighted one of them, more one-of-a-kind specialty retailers opposed to some of the chain retailers. And, you know, right now, this past week, you know, I attended the MAR Commercial Forecasting Summit and also the Hotel and Lodging Forecasting Summit. There were two different events. They broke out in the different subsectors of this MSA. We're positioned very well on both those as far as commercial real estate sales, lodging occupancy, average per room sales tower lights collection. We are in a very good spot. Patrick, do you have maybe just a couple of other things from the legislative agenda, preliminary legislative agenda that we've identified, at least to be on the radar?
The handbook legislation, whatever is introduced on that, and there have been some bills. We'll watch those, and we'll work with with the chief and the Chiefs Association regarding that. I don't think there's any union bills that have been introduced this year. The firefighters typically push for some type of union bill. Haven't seen that. I don't think it's been introduced. And then Chief Selberg has identified some other bills that pertain to health aspects with firefighters and a presumption of what might cause, let's say, cancer, for example, with firefighters, and going back and say that those relate their condition of fire. And last year we saw that, and we supported that there. And what we've heard is so many polls of what they're going to be discussing and what they're going to be moving through. Incredible turnover, and as Gibson said, we've had some deaths in the General Assembly, and as much as 25% turnover.
It's like 28
in the body. So they're still trying to figure themselves out as well. And of course, we have the new governor and his working relationship with the General Assembly. So.
But and the governor just put out, he's going to continue Governor Haslam's emphasis on a grant round for safety measures for our local schools, or for all of our schools. There's an SRO granting process. Has not been identified yet, but that announcement came out for $40 million funding statewide. I think it had in the press release, it mentioned that if a community already had an SRO program, you could use funding or request grant funding for other programs for school safety. And so we immediately have identified this through our chief and through our Lieutenant Shield to look at our new elementary school. We'll have to put an SRO there, and so perhaps we can qualify for a grant for that particular body. So that just came out this past week. So, any other questions on legislative agenda or sales tax?
Just a comment, y'all have been in it a lot longer than me, but I guess, I don't know if you look at that TML site, but while the legislature's meeting on Friday, they send out a regular email and you signed up for the bills that have come.
Yeah, is there anyone who doesn't get the TML update?
Okay.
Yeah, it comes out.
I figured you did.
Yes, I mean, I'd be honest with you, that's where I get most of my information. That or from our advocate lobbyist from his feed as well. So, and there's a few other ones. You know, we can all collaborate and share those. There's something called Civic Point that sends out a weekly that's got national and state. I'll be glad to circulate that to the board. So, and if there may be some that I'm not aware of, you guys can share with us as well.
Mary, it would be good if we could get the lobbyist position on all these items that are going before the state over the next year. That's something we haven't been sharing. So if we could do that, it would be good and get the opinion of the board perhaps on some of these, so that we could all direct the lobbyist.
I'm not confused, the lobbyist position on those, or?
Well, our position should be the lobbyist position.
Well, maybe that's what you mentioned though, so that's what confused me. Okay, I understand that.
Because as it is right now, the lobbyist is taking the position, I presume, of the administration without any consult from the alderman. And what I'm saying is it might be good to include the alderman in directing that
Sure.
position.
Yeah, well, we do adopt and have adopted and pass a legislative agenda, and at times things just come at us from the legislature that are not planned. They just happen. Once bills, I think 1,500 bills are filed at deadline, and part of what Harris-Babango does is they sift through those. Because none of us have time, and administrators don't have time. And so they will generally try to find ones that have historically had some effect upon our city and community. So some of that's fluid, it happens as it unfolds.
Would you mind copying us on when you get it?
Sure. I take it you get Harris-Babango's updates.
Yes.
Yeah.
I doubt.
You don't get
From
something
ear
in
to the
Johnson
ground.
City or whatever it is.
We get all BMA.
So you don't get their
About ear to
weekly?
the ground.
Yeah,
You don't get ear to the ground?
No, that's
Okay. Well, but we'll be glad to have you included. Matter of fact, I sent Jen Lacey an email last week to say, we have a new board member, please make sure that person's on there. So can you follow up on that?
I will.
Yeah. Any other questions on legal updates? I'm sorry, on state sales tax issues? We'll go ahead and take a quick, we've been at it now for almost 2 hours. We'll take a little bit of a recess and wait for our other two legal counsel folks to come. And that time we'll have our executive session with our city attorneys. Sorry. That's fine. We're just going to have a little recess right now. Okay, good. So you can go recess.
Like that, so FaceTiming me about something. Oh, Lord. Hey, if any of y'all need any food, we've got some over here. You can have some. We got plenty.
Thank you.
It's a good bump.
Yeah, that's good.
I saw this episode in Game of Thrones.
I'll drink some coffee.
So are we to clear out? Is that? I believe so. All right.
Okay, but we've got 4 items and probably 3. I'm going to ask you, the rules of engagement, we flip-flop and make that our last item because we can go over those type of things in a separate either work session or individually. But the next 3 items are they're all critically important to us, but these things step in front of that particular agenda item. The Germantown Country Club, as you're fully aware, is a tremendous opportunity that was thrust in front of the people of Germantown unexpectedly, and the city is really looking at this as an opportunity with our eyes wide open and making sure that, we mention this all the time, that we're a process-oriented city, and I know it gets to be old to hear that, but we are process. And so right now, as you're aware, board, Parks and Recreation has assembled, and they're looking at it from perhaps a use standpoint and how it would fit into our Parks Master Plan. Financial Advisory Commission, I think due to the flu, has a subcommittee, but due to the flu did not meet last night or 2 nights ago. Thursday. But that will pass, and they're going to look at things from a fiscal impact. And then ultimately, there will be an appraisal ordered. I think it's been ordered.
It's been ordered, yeah.
And that work will be engaged soon. And then eventually the board will field a recommendation from those citizen boards and commissions, and we'll need to decide whether this is something that we want to take on. So with that said, are you leading this, Pam?
Yes, sir.
Mayor, if I can make
Yes, go ahead.
just a comment, from a timing standpoint and our conversation with the trustee, they're going to be putting out a proposal, an RFP, if you will, for any and everybody who wants to make a proposal for the use of that property, we're inviting them to do that. They have not done that yet. We've had conversations back and forth with the trustee, and we will know when they submit that. So our intent was, the head shake no here today is to, when that RFP is put together, to respond in some form or fashion. As Mayor mentioned, the appraisal work is underway, and I appreciate the board's support of getting that initiated about 10 days ahead of this next board meeting. But we will respond. And one of the things we want to be able to do, I'm sure they're going to ask, well, what will the city pay for this? And there'll be other conditions as well. That's the reason for the appraisal. And that's the reason we're working also in terms of the use, but also what can the city afford from a fiscal standpoint, from a bonding capacity, what is our debt capacity, weighing this with all the other projects we have going. But certainly the administration and the mayor would certainly recognize that these opportunities don't come along every day and try to make something happen. But we're doing our fiscal due diligence as well.
Ma'am, the floor is yours. You have till about 10:20 because we have a couple other presenters after you, and we'll be respectful of our 11 o'clock conclusion date. So
Okay.
go right ahead.
If somebody wants to flip the lights for me, I'm gonna.
This was moonlighting for us. You're
I
about
want y'all to be fully awake. Fully awake and
You are known as Miss Sunshine on our team, so you are.
No, I'm Mother Nature.
Mother
I'm
Nature.
sorry. Okay, so again, I appreciate the opportunity to come and update y'all on the work of the Park Commission and the Master Plan Steering Committee. I've got two things that I want to cover this morning. One is I want to summarize the work of the work session that was conducted a couple of weeks ago, and we have a report that really articulates and summarizes the outcomes of that meeting. And I'll make some statements about that. And then I want to talk to you from the perspective of your Parks and Recreation Director, and really the opportunity and the impact that this process and this exercise could mean for our city. So, if you will, this document is intended to be an addendum or an amendment to our park plan. As y'all know, we started the process of updating our park system master plan in 2017. It was a very intense process, very broad-based in terms of public engagement with putting together a steering committee of most all of our major stakeholders in the city, with those stakeholders not being selected because of who they were, but selected by groups who would bring a voice to the table that could represent anywhere from a club or a group of 20 up to over 1,000. And so we feel really good about, again, the process that we went through to make sure that we gave representative thinking and thoughts to creating this park master plan. When we were going through the exercise, one of the challenges that we were faced with was forecasting and looking at how our city has evolved and how it will continue to evolve both now into 2030, 2050. We're looking at our school system and the increase in our student population, the demographics and the housing market here in Germantown, knowing that we're going to be built out. So we did an inventory and an analysis of all of our athletic and sports facilities, both youth and adult, our recreation amenities, and tried to determine is our inventory of those quality of life activities of where we need to be today, and where are the gaps and the voids, and how can we forecast into the future to know where and what areas we need to grow in. Bottom line, we identified there is an absolute need to meet our future recreational needs for additional land acquisition. Y'all know that. We need to be forward thinking and make sure that the integrity and the culture and the character of our city, what we've worked so hard to build over the last few decades is maintained as we continue to build out. So bottom line, we need more parkland. We all know that is a struggle in our city to find those opportunities and make it realistic and make it fit. The Germantown Country Club property was absolutely not on the radar screen. I mean, we were struggling to find green patches of parkland that was 20 acres, 15 acres, 40 acres. It was hard. So this opportunity basically, we think, could change everything. And so you all asked the Park Commission to reconvene, to bring back all of the stakeholders and the partners that worked so hard on developing this master plan. And so let me just kind of get into the work session and how we designed it and what the outcome was. So before you, there's some information in here just about, in general, the master plan and some of the things that I've outlined. But if you'll turn to the, let's see, I think it's the third page, it's A62. And by the way, folks that are here from the community, we will be posting the results of this online. But basically, the first question that we thought about was, the recently completed Park and Recreation Master Plan identified the needs listed below. And we asked the group to please indicate which of the items do you feel would be appropriate uses for the country club. And again, these are not amenities or items that really were envisioned in that work session. These were items that we looked at in the master plan 2 years ago. And we were struggling with how to fit all of these things within the footprint of what we have now. But you can see open space, multi-purpose sports fields, outdoor dining and gathering places, greenways, trails, areas for community festivals, tennis courts. They were all high priority items. And with 180 acres, certainly the potential and the possibility for any of those amenities exist. The other thing that we asked the committee to do was not to go through a master planning process. You know, I'm certain in your leadership role that you've gotten calls from members of the community and they said, hey, I think you need to retain the property as a golf course. Hey, I think you need to look at some additional soccer fields. Hey, I think you need to use the clubhouse and make a hotel. You know, and the list goes on and on and on. I know I've gotten those calls, but to make sure that we are going through that comprehensive process, what we asked this group to do was consider, I'm going to call it the land use category that they thought was best suited for the country club. And so there were 4. And so the first one was asking them how many in the group considered the highest and best use of the property as a passive park. And that is on page A63. And if you'll look at the definition of what we call a passive park, it's a few active areas like a dog park, greenways, tennis court, but the land would primarily be used for open space and natural areas to improve wildlife habitat and also provide flood storage. You could do picnic areas, you could do playgrounds, but it would be more of a passive experience. And that was option 1. And then we asked the group to consider the pros and the cons of that category. And those are demonstrated for you on there. I'm not going to read them all, but y'all can see what the thought process for that option was. Another option, we called it option 2, was a passive park with some type of golf operation to remain. Not necessarily retaining an 18-hole golf course, but you could look at a par 3, you could look at a 9-hole. There would be a lot of different ways that you could incorporate golf into the scheme of things, if that's what our community thought was most important. You would balance that golf course, obviously, with some trails and other amenities as was outlined in option 1. And again, this group identified the pros and the cons for that option. And then if you'll turn.
What do they mean by financial sinkhole, Pam?
Pardon?
Can you define financial sinkhole?
Oh, I'm going to talk about money in a minute. Okay. And again, you know, this parks director, I probably haven't slept too many hours since I've understood this opportunity exists, because I think part of my responsibility to you as a city employee, to find all of those scenarios, to find all of those cases across the country. This is not a unique occurrence, folks. You know, my research tells me that between 2000 and about 2 or 3, I'm going to call it the Tiger Woods years, there were probably over 2,000 golf courses constructed in our country, and golf was booming, and for a lot of communities it made huge financial sense. But then the year 2008 hit, and then a lot of dynamics, including I guess the needs and the desires of our millennials. How many millennials do you know who belong to country club? In the scheme of things, it's a small percentage. And so golf courses with the old model, they're struggling. And in the last decade, almost 1,000 golf courses in communities have closed and either they've been repurposed, reused, redeveloped. The list goes on and on. So we are not a unique community, and there are case studies. All you need to do is Google golf course conversion, and you know that we are not unique in that. Anyway, so I will talk about that. But the third option, besides golf course and passive, you'll find that information on A65. And that option is looking at an active park situation. It's more in line with what our current city parks are used for. Everything from your small neighborhood park at Germantown Station, at Cone Park, to our larger community parks like Cameron Brown or the complex over at C.O. Franklin Park. And those are parks that are used to primarily improve quality of life with every amenity you can think of, from youth sports fields to the 10-acre working farm that we have at the Bobby Lanier Farm Park. That is defined as an active park, and again, one that promotes all types of social and gathering opportunities for the community. And then finally, another option, and again, these were taken from how other communities went about, I call it their golf course conversion, is looking at some type of hybrid development, which is taking all of those elements, from passive parks to golf courses to active recreation, and throwing in some type of mixed-use development. So for our community, what we are going to be doing is, and I guess this is your charge as an elected official, is looking at which one of these, or a combination of these, is going to be best suited for our community. Bottom line, you ask the Park Commission to answer the question. The question, should the city of Germantown seek to acquire the Germantown Country Club property? This document, based on their work and based on about 176 comments that were sent to the city, both my office and in a portal, which all of those comments I have included in the back of this document for your review. Some of them were simple sentences, some of them were a textbook for you all to consider, but overwhelmingly, the response is yes, the city should seek to acquire the property. What I encourage you to do at this point is not to get ahead of ourselves and say, this is what the property is going to be. We have to go through the same process that we use on any of our park developments. Patrick and I kid around, and I have a new catchphrase that I use when I talk to folks about our planning strategy, and that is we do strategic, intentional public engagement. That's my goal as your parks director. I don't want to go into a neighborhood park and throw some money down on the table and say, hey, I'm going to build you a restroom, and I'm going to build you a tennis court, and I'm going to build you these things without having the conversation with people who live there to see what their desires are and how they would like to see us use their money. So again, this report tells you that there is strong support from your stakeholder groups and some folks in the general public to move forward with acquisition of this property. That's what this document says. And again, I'm going to leave that with y'all. We are going to include that in the Park Master Plan. The Park and Recreation Commission, they meet this coming Thursday. Because it was a work session format when we met over at the Pickering Center a couple of weeks ago, the Park Commission did not take any official action. So they haven't sent you a message yet. It just so happens your work session is coming before their meeting. But I fully expect the Park Commission to take official action in voting to recommend to this body. I am going to go out on a limb, and I'm thinking unanimously recommend to this body that you proceed with going through the process of seeking acquisition of the property. So I told you I also wanted to give y'all just a few closing comments from the perspective of the Parks Director. And you know, anytime my office, anytime we do any planning here in the city. I've been with the city now for 20 years, and I've had the opportunity to see our community grow and evolve. And one of the things that we did strategically as part of our business model several years ago, and I'm always very proud of this when I talk to my other colleagues in the state, when we take action on something, we don't look at that action just through the lens of how much is it going to cost. Unfortunately, sometimes that is the overriding thing that we have to look at. But we look at what we call through the lens of our triple bottom line, and that is financially, socially, and environmentally. And I believe that the purchase of this property gives us an opportunity to hit what I call the trifecta. And so, I want to share with y'all. So, I've got bank accounts here, and this is financial. You know, one of the things that I live here in the city, I'm a taxpayer. What I love about this city is I can literally get almost every one of my needs met here in the city of Germantown. I have great health care. There's shopping galore. I can buy my clothes here. I can buy my gas here, my groceries here. I was thinking about this last night. The only thing that I can't buy here is an automobile and some appliances. But if you annexed Lowe's just across the river, we could even cross that one off. So financially, I think our city is very intentional, and I think we're financially stable, and we've done that because we've made wise business decisions and supporting developments like Saddle Creek and those things that make me as a citizen spend money here, so my property taxes don't have to bear the brunt of everything that happens here. So financial stability in our city, I'm going to push this bank account way up to the top. Then, this is like Saturday Night Live skit.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so then we're going to look at social. Our education system, this is Shakespeare, our education system is probably one of the best in the state. So when we look at our bank account with education, we're filling that account up. It is a true investment to that quality of life here in Germantown. with the arts and GPAC, that's my arts. Again, there's nothing in a suburban area like our GPAC and our park system, which is nationally accredited, because we bring people together. You look at our public safety, I couldn't get a police badge, pretend this is it, but public safety, we are the safest city in the state, and I would say the southeast. We have opportunities for dining and food, and so when you look at our commitment and our investment in our bank account for our social needs, I'm going to push that way up to the front. And then our triple bottom line also includes the environment. Now, who has a full garden in February? Pam beats me. And it's all in bloom. Of course, I told somebody earlier that my yard looks like SeaWorld right now. Most of yours does as well. But I would say on the environmental side, we've made advancements. But we are not way out here yet. But the acquisition of the Germantown Country Club, and whatever we do with it, especially knowing that we would take every opportunity to implement sustainable standards, green infrastructure, and be mindful of all of the environmental practices that we could put in place that you might not be able to do when you're building a school or when you're developing a commercial retail development. This property can mitigate all of that and the birds so that you have more of a balance. And that's my message.
Oh, that does do it. Mother Nature, you truly are. In this particular agenda item kind of has two categories to it, use and fiscal impact. So Patrick, can you kind of walk the board through not only that, but also perhaps what stage in the process and how the process will unfold in the next few minutes? Pam, just stay here or stay around so you can answer questions.
Can I ask, I just want to add one thing, and hopefully, Patrick, this will be a preamble to what you're going to say, and that is, I am aware that the Financial Advisory Commission is working in tandem with us on this process, but there are also other state and federal agencies, again, that have had experience in golf course conversions that can help us calculate the conservation economics of a golf course and what that would mean to the community. And so again, looking at that dollar bill is important, but we're also going to need to look at the cost and the benefit of the environmental part of that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Mayor and Board, as Pam said, this was not on our radar when we adopted the budget a year ago and last June and did our 5-year financial plan, and when the Parks Commission and Pam did the overall master plan. Nowhere did we think it would be 180 acres that could be available for the city. As you all know, we're fully annexed. There's no more, we're not making any more land, that we can't bring any additional property. So when this first hit our radar, the mayor and I talked about it, we were pretty excited about the potential. What could we do? I think the mayor set the stage with the trustee and hopefully a strong message to the community. In the early quote the release we put out about, he's not speaking for the board, but his thoughts and intentions about how best to use that property. It's zone residential, it's going to stay residential, and gave some assurances to the people who live around that area. And so that's why the Parks Commission did the work that they did. We had our first FAC meeting about a month ago, right? Yes. And at that time, we brought up the golf course and country club acquisition to the FAC. They were very enthused about the potential and the possibility. And before we knew it, we had 10, 11 people volunteer to serve on a subcommittee, which oftentimes the FAC will do that if they want to focus on an area. Unfortunately, we did not meet Thursday because over half the group called in sick, and suddenly said, this doesn't make sense. We got too much to cover. I'm going to get into a little bit about finances here in a second, but just to recap our conversations with the trustee. The trustee is working for the trust, and his objective is to really get as much, he's working for the trust. He wants to get as much from a financial standpoint as he can from the property, its highest and best use, whatever that might be. So that's why they are developing this request for proposals that will be out, we hope sometime in March. It seems to be getting pushed back every so often, about a week or so, but they're going to develop an RFP. I have no idea what it looks like, don't know what the questions are, but we will, as well as anybody else, will be available to respond to that. We'll put our dollar amount in there, what we're willing to pay for the property based upon the appraisal, and thank you, board, for giving us a jump start on that to get that appraisal work underway. We'll bring that to you Monday night for ratification. It'll be obviously based on cost, we'll have more discussions about that. And then we'll need to have a discussion about what do we put in the RFP? What do we say we want to use the property for? We want to put our best foot forward in terms of response. So they want to have this under contract to get the other point. They can work backwards. They'd love to have this under contract by May.
Well, I guess that's my point, is that we don't have time to wait much longer to start this analysis. So hiring the consultant, a month now, that's not going to give us enough time. We should have done this a month ago. And so now we're pushing.
The consultants want to keep it as, or to, their expertise is about golf course and that type of thing. We can look at a recommendation and then look at the uses at another time. Sense of urgency will create great work by our team. We'll get that in front of you. We're being dictated by a third party we don't have any control over. So if we want to be a participant, we have to more or less play by their rules in a certain sense. So we'll get the information in front of you, without a doubt.
It's not going to be enough time if we don't do it now.
Well, we can pass on the opportunity if you wish.
That's not what I said. I said I wanted to do an analysis of this so that we can make an informed decision.
Well,
you're going to jam us up at the last minute.
We are doing
and
an
make us
analysis right now. Parks and Rec have started their work. Financial Advisory Commission has started their work. Their appraiser, and we're thankful that you allowed us to use our ability to engage prior to getting approval for the cost. So, yeah, we've expedited that and we jumped this forward, but we want to be respectful of the process. So it'll get in front of you, without a doubt.
Once we know the price, I don't want to do anything more.
Yeah, of course. We've got about less than 30 minutes and two other items to cover.
Well, but Alderman, I guess, that's the other thing. Why haven't we already ordered this appraisal?
We have ordered.
A month ago. We just ordered it. We had a special phone call from the city administrator who asked us to give this approval. Now we're going to vote on it on Monday. Why didn't we do that a month ago and then start the process of analyzing?
I didn't know if we could get an appraisal on the property.
We
We
get
don't
to
own
ask
the property.
permission
I had to
of the-
get permission from the trustee, to get permission from the trustee to get on the property. You just can't show up and say, we're here to appraise your property, we're from the city of Germantown. I need to get permission from the appraiser. They had a lot of things in the air as well, who they were going to deal with directly. So this is the end of February. We found out about this 5-6 weeks ago. I think we can move pretty quickly on it.
The pressure didn't show, the trustee didn't show up until like 2 weeks ago.
About 2 weeks ago.
Let's move to CIP and CIP city and school
I'm
projects.
just going to give a quick overview of the capital budget the way I know it right now, and Mr. Heisman knows it as well. There were 42 projects that were submitted by different departments for funding in this year's CIP for FY20. Now remember, you do a 5-year CIP as well, but 42 projects submitted. I can tell you, based on history and practice, that we will not be able to fund all 42 projects. Staff is currently putting those projects in a priority ranking, what are the most important. And again, thanks to our financial policies, there's not a scale, there's a weighting mechanism we use in terms of public safety, those type of things, where projects go down higher than others. The total ask in FY20 is $21.5 million. I can tell you that in FY20, we will not be able to forward all those projects in the budget. Some of those will need to be moved down in the 5-year priority listing, or just totally moved off the 5-year CIP. But that's a balance we do every year in terms of looking at, as I mentioned, our debt capacity, how much we're going to issue debt, what do our reserves levels look like, can we pay just cash for projects? These are multi-million-dollar projects, many of these, and where's the funding source going to come from? So of the $21.5 million If we were to simply take dollars out of reserves, we'd be pulling $10.8 million out of reserves. We're looking at grants right about at $10 million. Again, those grants are tied to, most of those are the FHA, Federal Highway Administration, through TDOT, through the MPO to support a lot of the capital road, transportation, and intersection improvements that we have. We've submitted our list to the MPO. They do a 3-year funding cycle. It's called their TIP, Transportation Improvement Plan, and we have a number of projects that have been submitted, and hopefully the projects that we've asked for will be budgeted in this year's CIP. If we don't receive MPO/TIP money for these road projects, we will not move forward with it because they're all 80/20, so the majority of the funding is going to be coming via the state to the MPO. We're looking at a bond issue. Again, if we move forward with all these projects, right at $4.5 million, and most of that is going to be used for the school addition in FY20 that was anticipated, and then other state and federal funding. So we've got a lot of work yet to do on the CIP. Right now, it's a balanced CIP. We're looking at funding for the design of the fire station. We're looking at improvements to Forest Hill Highway Road on the north side, and that, by the way, is one where we hope to get MPO funding for. It won't be the full 2 lanes and center turn lane. Correct me if I'm wrong, Cameron, it would be a center turn lane with a lane in each direction on the far north of Poplar Avenue. But that won't go forward unless we get the federal funding for that school. In terms of school projects, Mr. Heisman and Randall Douglas have worked very closely with Josh Cappy and school administration in terms of identifying their needs and trying to get them into our 5-year CIP. They approach their budgeting a little bit differently than us, but there's a lot of credit to Jason to get them thinking about funding for this year. What are the funding sources during the 5-year planning period? What are your needs so we're not blindsided by additional capital that the district may come up with? And so based on, and I'm going to have you jump in, Jason, in just a second, based on their work, we anticipate in FY20 the middle school addition happening. $5 million is what we have in the budget, but based on experience, we're going to go back and revisit that figure because it probably is going to be more. $5 billion doesn't go as far as it used to these days. So we'll get a better figure for them. We've also, I'd say committed, but through a memorandum of understanding to work with the district and an outside party project individual to fund the field house construction. It's a $4 million project. The city is in for $2 million? $2 million.
Yep.
No.
200 a year.
$1 million, right.
$1 million. Thank you. Let's clarify that. $1,200,000 a year for 5 years. That was in our MOU, and we will be a participant in that project. And Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, we're also looking at security upgrades again.
$500,000, it's been another request. You would jump in?
Good.
Right now, just for the facilities committee that the GMSD has, Randall and I was our first year serving on it, we developed a document that was just presented to the board at the end of last calendar year, the school board. But the school board has not taken action on any requests that we would anticipate will be coming here in the next few months to the FAC. But what was a part of that plan, that working group, was we did a $500,000 allocation in FY19. Another $500,000 has been requested for security improvements in FY20. The second part of the boiler project for an additional $1.5 million. As Mr. Lawton said, the $5 million for the addition at the school right now is an amount towards the addition at Houston Middle, and then our share, second year of that $200,000 towards the total $1 million towards that field house project. And right now, for planning purposes, that we have earmarked is $7.2 million that comes to in FY20 towards school projects. That hasn't been an official request. That's just part of the document that group has worked on. And I'm not going to get into the boiler bids, but
Before you get into the boiler, when will that come before,
what? I'm sorry.
when will that come before, when will that ask, that request
So GMSD has a date as part of our schedule that was added to the FAC schedule. I don't recall what month it is. Is it March or April? April.
Separate meetings with them.
And we have asked, as part of, I believe it was your request, Vice Mayor, that that schools submit their capital request in December, like beginning of January, December, beginning of January, like the rest of our departments do. Those figures that Mr. Lawton presented, the 20 million in this year, around close to 70 million over 5 years, did not include school projects. That's just city needs in CIP. So we've asked them to do so. We have not received that information. We've also requested that the 5-year CIP plan be submitted to them. We haven't received that either. What we've been told from administration is that the board, the school board, would like to review the document and the needs of the district, perhaps maybe to see how bids have come in the spring here before they make their formal request. So we haven't seen much procedural change from the school.
It's really important for, again, we work in such good partnership with our school district, for them to be able to make certain that we have in a timely fashion, especially things that are coming as a request for this fiscal year. For us to be able to turn on a dime like that, I think that is a challenge. And so I'm certain that they know that, and we can only encourage. And so, Jason, I know that you've worked on the facilities committee. You and Reynolds are on there now, and I appreciate the work that you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you, Jason. I have nothing else on the CIP, other than we'll go through the board. See, and there'll be a separate work session with the board on the capital budget. We'll present to you a balanced capital budget that fits into the general fund.
Questions on CIP or school portion of it?
No, I agree with Alderman Gibson, though, as far as getting it in front of the board in a timely manner, well in advance of, I think, when it goes to the FAC. Just keep us on notice of what they're wanting to do. But I agree.
It sounds very much like the ball is in their court. If a request was made back, I would say before December, we asked for it to be, we're 2 months in, almost 3 months in right there. So I don't know how we keep having those conversations, but if
We've got an education work group meeting coming up next week or 2 weeks from now. So we'll make that point loud and clear.
So something that might be helpful is they came before the board, and we actually deliberated on some of these issues in advance, let them come to us with their wants, and maybe we can't do everything, but we say, here's what we're in favor of, and then they can still come back, but we get their wants way in advance of where they go.
That's a good point. I don't think they're there yet.
Yeah.
So we'll inspire them. We've got, again, respect on those, some board members have like a couple of milestones and ball games. So we're going to look at moratorium update. Patrick and Jason, you've got right at 14
I'm going
minutes.
to turn it over to moratorium man, Jason.
I can do much shorter than 14 minutes and leave time for questions. As you recall, the purpose of the moratorium was to give the city time to be able to study the impact of future apartment and apartment buildings on city services. Somewhat of it was also within the smart code zoning districts. And so we have spent the last 14 months putting together a team of anywhere from 13 to 16 individuals. A good majority of them have some Lean Six Sigma, black belt experience, and we've been working diligently. If you come by City Hall, you've seen me. Most of my time has been spent behind a computer, putting this information into format that hopefully is easily understandable to everyone once it's presented. But our objective was to take that somewhat of a narrow focus on apartments, and buildings, and present that in a greater context for residential build-out. I believe in the whereas, as it says that dense developments could result in a disproportionate impact on city resources and services. So to best understand the impact apartments are having, we as a group have been working on understanding the impact not just of apartments, but have had historical data that over the last 5 to 10 years that we do have, I'll talk about the areas that we have that information, but that we also know are single-family homes, condominiums, townhomes, assisted living, senior living, independent type uses also have had on us. So 4 areas, key areas of concentration that we've been spending our time on have been GMSD, school enrollment in our school system, in each one of those residential areas, public safety, police, fire and EMS services, and then infrastructure and transportation systems, which is pretty large category. Mr. Ross and Mr. Sanders, who was here earlier, and economic development manager and planners have been working, spending a lot of time in that category. So ultimately, our objective is to dig into that data. We've been able to automate a lot of the data retrieval that we have, especially in the public safety area. And some has been a lot of laborious work with, we can't automate it. And so that has taken a good portion of the study to be able to do. But what we like to do is present our findings to the board so that they understand the impact each one of those areas is having in those areas. And then it can be used to be able to make, if necessary, any policy adjustments that might be necessary for future residential build-out in each one of those areas. And we've gotten to the point where we've tried to put this together by district. So we have fire districts, police districts, we have school attendance zones, and then we have a lot of studies that have been done from infrastructure and transportation. So what is the impact by districts? What is the impact on the city as a whole, collectively on our services in each one of those areas? And then ultimately, we have come up with a lot of data that we can then use for forecasting purposes. Some areas we're able to do trend analysis. Some areas we're able to use more measures of central tendency to be able to get averages and medians, to be able to apply to the number of units that we project in certain land uses and things of that nature, so that we can give you a picture of the district, a picture of the citywide in those areas, and be able to say we would expect to respond these many times. This is the impact ambulance services are having in each one of these different areas, or these are the number of kids we'd expect that would come out of this type of residential product in this area. And then what kind of capacity do we have in those areas? So there's a lot to work through. It's taken a lot of time. We're 14 months in. Our timeline would be to have this information in presentable format at the 16-month mark, which would put us at the end of April. That is what we're looking at right now, ideally, give or take a week or two, to be able to begin discussions at the beginning of May, knowing that we would expect to be able to provide some recommendations also as part of our study as different options for the board to consider, and use May and June to be able to fully vet the potential modifications, if any, to our current policies regarding residential uses. So that's a snapshot.
The thought and the work and the effort by staff is incredible on the project. And early on, Mr. Heisman and I and the mayor talked about, you just can't look at apartments in a vacuum. You have to create some context to what do these calls mean compared to what, in terms of children from apartments versus children from home. We had to look at the entire residential landscape.
I'll take back one of those. I think the board should be aware that once you make your decision and enact it, the type of scrutiny that that decision will be under will look at what the studies reveal and whether or not your actions are reasonable in response to those studies. Covington just went through a process where they really didn't do much to study what Jason was talking about, and the court held that they didn't do those things. Therefore, there was not enough basis for extending their moratorium, and that it violated the Fair Housing Act. So when you act on the statistics that you're given, it has to bear a rational relationship to what they are.
questions for Seth?
So, Mayor, I guess my question would be, why weren't these studies conducted before these areas were rezoned to allow for the apartments to begin with, so that we didn't have this problem of having to have a moratorium? And if those studies were done, what did they show?
Go.
I was just, they weren't done. They weren't done, and the moratorium has put us in a position to look at those, and we're doing that now. I can't go back and speculate 2 years ago what did or didn't happen. I can only tell you what we're doing now.
So, Attorney McCarroll, if we didn't do those on the front end, or if we did, can we not go back and say that it was unwise to have those zoned to allow for these apartments in the first place? I mean, could that be part of our deliberations? And,
Y'all can deliberate on whatever you want. The question is going to be, is the ultimate decision rationally related to the studies that you're relying on?
what if the studies are wrong?
That's for you to decide. And the court would put that under scrutiny and see if that's a reasonable decision to make. Whether the fact that they're not reliable is a reasonable decision. They're going to just put it under a microscope, the basis for the decisions of the board.
So Patrick, each time we had a smart growth area, the city didn't do an analysis to determine what the impact would be on these services?
Are you asking me?
Yes, I'm asking.
Okay. I didn't hear a question. So no, we did a small area plan to look at how this area would develop and brought that information back to the board and showed from a planning standpoint, this is what could take place on this property, this is what the zoning would look like, this is the fiscal impact of this type of development. It did not look at the type of housing type and the strain, if you will, or lack thereof, on city resources. We don't typically do that from an economic development impact standpoint. We now, because of this, we now have the resources and the tools to be able to do that. And, you know, we could plug it in and say, here's the impact on city resources. Cameron.
So with each small area, the fiscal impact was related to see what the push and pull would be as it related to the basic impact of how many multifamily units could be generated on these available parcels. But at the time of the first small area plan, we didn't have a school district, so that wasn't something that was on our horizon at that point. And then the Western Gateway plan was also done prior to the generation of our school district. That was done in 2013. The school district came online in 2014. But that also assumed a certain number of units so that we could do a basic fiscal impact that really studied the infrastructure and the traffic impacts, but not necessarily the public safety impacts, because we also didn't have an ambulance service at the time of both of those plans, along with our school district. But we have, as Mr. Heisman indicated, a compendium of information related to the infrastructure as well as the traffic analysis for each of those, and have built upon the traffic models on each subsequent small area plan, so that we are aware from an infrastructure analysis, from a water, sewer, traffic, et cetera, of what those impacts are. But on public safety and on schools, those weren't things that we considered as part of the small area plans, because it wasn't relevant to, as Mr. Lawton indicated, the planning side of things and the build-out analysis. Those were more obviously germane, but tangent to that in a more quality of life perspective rather than just a development analysis.
Thanks for that clarification.
And let me again, because we're up against the hour, you know, over time, you know, at one time we had a land use map developed in the 60s and 70s. I know, of course, when you were too as city planner, you know, people looked at that. We've evolved over time, and thank goodness the process has changed and moved forward so that we can do in-depth analysis. Not to say that in the 60s and 70s and 80s they all winged it, but the land use map was created and city planners gave advice and recommendation. Elected people followed it, and sometimes they asked deeper questions and sometimes they did not, and that's the way things evolved. But now we're in a sense of heightened analysis, and thank goodness we've have the resources. And if you ever visit his office, oftentimes it's a hub of activity of all the different content area experts coming in and working on this, and it'll be a great product for us to adopt and maybe even move that into a land use type of policy in the future. So if anything, we should all applaud what we're doing right now. This is good land use planning and a good process. And it came out of an inordinate demand of one particular market segment that introduced itself into this market. So we'll move forward, and we thank you for your work and the team of 14 or 15 or 16. So with that said, we're right at 11, and I do want to thank staff for giving up their Saturday morning, and the board for setting aside, carving out time as well for this retreat. And there will be some subsequent action as we move forward in other work sessions. So thank you, everyone. We'll see you Monday. What time is it? If you could, kind of police your area.